Hi, so the next step in our canvas interfacing for our half-scale miniature is, after we've done our dart, is to place our upper canvas. So when you're placing this, you want to make sure you place it on the wrong side of your canvas. So I know that this is the wrong side because this is the side that I put my bias strip for my dart. So this would be the side that would face outward, and then this would be the side that would be towards the body. So I've placed my upper canvas so that this edge and this edge, the canvas is tight to, and then you can see here I have a little gap between the neckline of the main canvas piece and the upper canvas piece. Now I've already started pad stitching this, and you're going to be doing it from this side. You don't want to do it from this side, and the reason why you're doing it from this side is it will take the shape over your hand as you're pad stitching, and we want that. So we want this to have a little bit of curvature, and the pad stitching gives us that effect that machine sewing wouldn't give us. So I initially started this in this edge, and you're working from the cut edge towards the center. So I pad stitched down and up and down and up and down and up. When I got to the center, I'm now rotating this, not flipping, rotating, and I'm going to pad stitch down the other side. So I've already got my thread anchored there, and a pad stitch is about 3/8 of an inch for this piece, and you just go through and you just want to make sure that you just barely catch. So I don't know if you could see my needle, but I could just barely see the glint of needle there. Just barely catch the two layers. Oops. And it helps if you do shorter lengths of thread and you wax them to pad stitch this, and so I should be doing this from this direction, make it easier on myself. So you're going to go from the outside edge in, and it just looks like one of my students pointed out that it looks like little Christmas trees going up and down. So the stitch on the top is 3/8. The stitch going in and under is only about 1/8. And my stitches got a little long on this side, so because I was talking and got distracted. So just make sure that you're trying to keep them at your 3/8, and I wasn't paying attention to my tail, so I let my thread get unthreaded. So I like to keep this thread tail about 3/8 of an inch away, or sorry, 1/2 inch. So halfway between my needle and where I'm in my fabric is where I try to keep that thread tail. And then if you do that, you're not likely to become unthreaded. So I'm just feeling on the other side that I'm going through, which can end up with a bloody finger on the other side if you're not careful, so just be cautious. And I don't need to do anything pretty or special when I'm coming down the other direction. Just turn and head back the other way. So I'll just keep doing this until I get to the center and make my little so you don't really knot, you just anchor it a few times, and that's usually sufficient. So pad stitching allows you to manipulate the fabric and give curvature that machine sewing just isn't as good at unless you're easing something in, which is essentially what we're doing here. I'm going to try to keep it a little away from this edge in case I want to trim it off later. So I'm just going to come over. You don't want these rows too far apart either. You want to keep them consistent. And on a full-size garment, you would not just be pad stitching 2 layers of hair canvas together. You would be pad stitching maybe multiple layers of hair canvas with some French canvas, with some flannel, and and some muslin. So maybe even some batting, but usually, and the flannel is actually for comfort. It would go on this it would go on this side, and it just gives you a little bit of protection because hair canvas can be stiff and itchy because it's wool and horsehair. So yeah, so you want to make sure, or on a full-size garment, you want to add some sort of soft layer that, even though your lining's going to be there, your lining usually isn't sufficient to keep this from poking through and being itchy. Okay, so I'm about to run out of thread, so I'm going to knot this off, but I just want you to notice that on this side you can see the little 1/8 of an inch dashes that I have, and you can already see that this is creating a bit of curvature and stiffness, so it kind of making a bowl shape here, that will then lay against the chest of the body and fill in that area between the shoulder and the bust. Okay, so I'm just gonna take my last few stitches. It again. And I also want to note that I have an open-ended thimble, which that way, no matter how long your nails are or short your nails are, just gives you, like, you use this part of the thimble instead of the tip. But for this last little bit, I'm going to use it so that it doesn't keep coming unthreaded on me. And then I'll just tie it off. So an extra stitch in the same space, and then I'll get a little bit more thread and finish it up. Okay, so I've switched colors here. So you don't want to use a really stiff thread, because it can show through when you press it. So you also want to use like often in couture sewing they use silk hand sewing thread, but for the sake of our half scale, I'm just using up some old thread that is not the best quality. Like, it rips and breaks a little bit easier, but now I just have a little bit of curvature here, so it doesn't want to, like, I have space under here because of that curvature. So this no longer, between our dart and our canvas pad stitching, is laying flat. It has a little bit of a dome shape there, so a little bit of dome. And that's how you do your half scale pad stitching. So the next thing is we'll be basting this onto our jacket front, and then you'll pad stitch the lapel, or that would be the next step for applying this, and then we would baste it to other areas of the jacket to temporarily hold it in place. And you also stitch this to your welt pocket, which should already be done.